Good morning, I'm Devin, and this is Over 50 Coffee Talk. You remember back in the day, and kids nowadays don't even realize this, right? Remember back in the day when you wanted to go somewhere, like on a trip or something, and you had to get one of those maps, right? So you're driving, and you had to have this map, right? And it was a pamphlet, and it unfolded, and it was an art to fold them back up, right? Remember that? They never got refolded the way they were. They were only folded that way once. You unfold that map, right? And the thing would be 3 feet wide, right? You'd have a map of your entire state, and the roads, like little roads, weren't on there. I mean, you had interstates and maybe some intermediate roads, but you had to figure it out. You had to figure out the rest, right? And kids today just don't understand. They don't understand the struggle, right? So, kids, and kids aren't watching this, but say this to your kids. Kids, can you imagine driving somewhere 100 or 150 miles away, and you had this piece of paper this big that only showed you the next major road, right? So you'd like fold that in half and put it in your seat or whatever. Or maybe you had a navigator with you, which then you're lucky, okay? But if you had to go somewhere, you had to just look for the interstate, and you'd know how to get on the first one, right? But then you'd be watching signs, and oh man, we better pull over and ask directions, right? Pull over and somewhere and ask, hey, how do you get here? Oh, well, you go up here, the stop sign, you're writing down directions. And you had your own shorthand for directions, right? Everybody had their own, had like, okay, 2 mile ST stop sign, and I'd put a little arrow right. And then I'd be 1 mile, look for Stone House, take a left. And you'd write down the street name, these street names. And you'd have these written directions based on some dude at the gas station, or whatever. Uh, no one understands. Now it's like even the Garmin GPS is old school now, right? So yeah, I thought it was the biggest thing when got my first Garmin GPS. Like, check this out. I thought I was big stuff, right? Stick that sucker to your windshield, wire going to the cigarette lighter, cigarette lighter. They don't even put actual cigarette lighters in cars anymore. It's just an outlet, right? It's called a 12-volt outlet. They don't even call it a cigarette lighter outlet anymore. Used to be, pull your cigarette lighter out, throw it in the ashtray or the glove box. If you don't, whatever. If you don't use it, it probably was just left in your glove box all the time, and you'd have this plug, right? And then, you know, so I had this, GPS, and you know, put in your directions, and everybody was amazed. You know, some of them at first they didn't even say the street name; they just said turn left, turn right. You know, and then they finally got more advanced, and they would have street names. Or they got a little more advanced, a little more advanced, a little more advanced. Then you know, eventually, you know, oh, and by the way, back in the day, it's not like you had your phone to call somebody if you got lost. There was no cell phone, there was no internet. You didn't have any of that. You'd be stopping at a payphone and hoping you had some quarters, right? And put in that sucker. And hey, I'm lost. I'm up here. I'm running late. Kids today, they just have no idea. No one can possibly know what that was really like. Um, Now it's like everything's on the phone, right? I mean, your directions are on the phone. It's an inconvenience if you don't have a nice mount there for your phone, and you actually have to pick up the phone. And now it's getting illegal to pick up your phone. So you almost have to have a mount if you're using your phone for directions. Now, you know, kids kids today can't imagine not having the internet. They can't imagine that. I mean, they can. You can tell them there was no internet. They don't quite understand that there was no source of information. If you wanted to know something, you had to like go to the library and try to find it in a book somewhere, or you know, I mean, we, my wife and I drove. We were moving to Florida from Pennsylvania. I live in Pennsylvania, right? We were moving to Florida. I live back in Pennsylvania now, but at the time, we just drove down there. We were going to look for a house to rent until we could buy something. And so we drove around. We drove to a convenience store, got a newspaper, right? And we're looking, circling ads. And then we'd get out of the car, go to the payphone and call the people in the ad, get somebody to finally answer, get directions, write down the directions, right, turn left, and go look at a house. And then, we didn't like that one. Back to the convenience store. Well, we might do a couple at once, right? But we spent days doing this in a road trip, right? Got at some crappy hotel. And, this was, I think it was, and this not, we're not talking about the 1970 or 80s here. I'm talking about 2004. Okay. This was 2004 that I'm talking about here. So, yeah, I mean, there was an internet at that time, but nobody had it on their phone, right? Nobody had it, nobody used it much at all. When the internet first came out, it wasn't like, wow, now I can find everything. No, no. It was like chat groups, and oh, wow, I can talk to people on the computer now, and nobody really knew or understood what it was going to be, right? Kids, they don't really teach that, and not that they need to teach it, but hey, kids should understand that the struggles that we had back then. Um, then and now you can pretty much. I mean, when you went to pay your bills, there wasn't an internet. There was, it was writing checks, right? Writing checks, and that, I mean, now I write very few checks. There's a couple places we go and buy stuff, auctions and stuff, where they'll charge you if you use your card, but they don't charge you if you give them a check. So I'll give them a check. And I mean, used to be, and now, now if somebody does, if I am sending somebody a check, it's like, okay, let me go on on my bank account on the internet and hit bill pay and get them to send them a check. I don't even send the check. It's a check, but it's not really. It's not like a checkbook. I don't even balance a checkbook anymore. You just look in your phone, see how much money you have left, see if there's any transactions you don't recognize. They'll do the math. You used to have to have a checkbook and like write everything down that you wrote checks for, you know, and balance your checkbook. I haven't balanced a checkbook in 15 plus years. But yeah, it's different today. It is so different. Um, so hey, drinking my coffee, sitting out here, enjoying a nice morning. It is a nice day here in South Central Pennsylvania, right outside of Gettysburg, and it is beautiful. Have a good one, everybody. We'll see you next time.